Okay, thank you. We're going to call this meeting to order, the May 15th hearing of the Committee of Adjustment. We begin this gathering by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. Acknowledging this reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people. So welcome to the hearing of the Committee of Adjustment, as I said. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. There are two major types of applications to this committee. One are applications for consent and severance. Second is our applications for minor variances to municipal zoning bylaw requirements. Evidence may be required to be given under oath if deemed necessary. Please address your comments and questions through the chair. That is me this evening. Copies of the decisions will be mailed to the applicant and to any other person who appeared before the committee or filed a written request to receive notice of decision. Pursuant to the More Homes Built Faster Act and in the matter of consent applications, the applicant, the minister, or a specified person or public body that has an interest in the matter has the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of the consent to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the mailing of the decision. Minor variance decisions may also be appealed. However, they must be made within 20 days of the making of the decision, and the cost of an appeal is still $400. Are there any amendments or additions to the agenda?
There are no changes. There are no changes to the agenda. Sorry.
You didn't light up like I thought you would.
There we are. There are no changes to the agenda.
All right, third time's a charm, thanks. My voice carries so loud that I didn't even know the microphone wasn't on. Thank you. Does any member of the panel have a conflict of interest in any of the applications to be considered at this meeting or previous meetings if they were not in attendance?
Yes. I wish to declare a non-pecuniary conflict of interest for the January 24th hearing regarding A12623 to Lockview. It was mostly a technical in nature minimum front yard setback. This is a coworker of mine, and I did not attend that meeting.
Thank you. That was more detailed than what I'm about to say because I don't remember the file, but I too had a conflict of interest in each of the last two meetings, which I did not attend. I was out of town. I have made a written, I have submitted a written letter of my conflicts of interest. One was regarding a file for an address at 8 Merritt Street, and the other was a file for Great Western Drive, the train station. I had a conflict of interest in that. I am an architect and was participating on those projects in some capacity, although not directly in all cases. And so there are no other conflicts of interest. Great, thank you. Are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment?
The first one is for 4-3 Old Coach Road. There is a request for withdrawal of the minor variance application A5423 and a request for a refund of the minor variance application fees. The owner is present.
Okay, thanks. We'll get to that in a second. I'm just going to let everybody know who we are, sort of. Most of you will have dealt with the Secretary-Treasurer and Planning Committee Coordinator, Elaine and Rosa, and you will have dealt with one of the staff city planners on your project or your applications, presumably. So they are here this evening to facilitate and contribute to the hearing discussion and considerations. And your committee members are your friendly neighborhood volunteers, featuring such personalities as Jamal, Tom, Carrie, David, and me, Greg. We will be participating, we will be considering your applications this evening, with everybody having a chance to speak. So now I'm going to take this time to switch from this to this. And we're talking about our request for withdrawal. And that was for, I believe, 9 Michigan Avenue?
43 Old Coach Road.
43 Old Coach Road, right, that page. Would the applicant please join us down here at the Horseshoe, through those gates, at one of these 2 seats at the end? Don't be shy. So the opportunity for you now is to discuss why it is, so the applicant wishes to withdraw the minor variance application and request a refund of the minor variance application's fee. So obviously, we're going to want to know what the circumstances are surrounding your decision to withdraw and the request for the refund. So if you want to turn your mic on and let us know, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chris Cloud, and I'm at 43 Old Coach Road. We did apply for a variance prior to this, and then within about 10 or 15 minutes of the meeting, we were told that it was going to be turned down and that we were being offered an olive branch for further resolution to the situation. I did do a lot of investigation in that, and then I finally requested a meeting, and we had the chief building inspector and the bylaw officer come down, and I was looking for resolution. The main reason I'm requesting it is because under their guidance and instruction, they told me to request it and to become compliant. So I live on a subdivision where everything's been complete harmony, nothing's been gone wrong or anything. We got new neighbors, and it's just been hell since. So the structures that have been there for 35 years, one replaced another one, whatever. So I was advised to spend a whole bunch of money doing compliance. I have started that. I even had a professional survey done. I haven't got the results yet, but it's just been an ongoing tormenting process. We've lived there peacefully, and no one complained. The biggest thing was my shed, and apparently it was the bylaws officer who registered the complaint on that one. So I don't really know what to do, I'll be honest with you. My garage was built with a permit, my addition was built with a permit. I've done everything always that the city has told me to and been compliant. I have my own drainage, and I've spent a ton of money. And now I'm just going with the best thing I can do is if the chief building inspector has recommended this, and that I moved the one shed already. The pergola, I've got, from Shauna, I've got the exact requirements. I have to cut that all the way back, remove that. My shed, I have to, I'm out by 2.2 inches and 4 inches right now, as far as I know. I have to move all the walls, all the electrical, all the plumbing, and the cost of that is going to be very, very substantial. And then now, for some reason, they want me to do a building permit too on that building. So the chief building permit officer came down, and the first time he said it was good, no problem. Came down the second time, and then it wasn't until the third time that he told me that just apply for it and go from there. But I need to come into compliance with the issues, the 3 issues or 4 issues, the 2 back walls and the 2 sheds in the pergola.
So if I may try to summarize and focus on the situation. So not knowing, well, we'll find out a bit more, I think, as we discuss, but not knowing, so understanding that there's probably some kind of complaint about existing non-conformance. The city went out to take a look and identified the 3 or 4 areas, and you had a discussion about how to come into compliance. One road one avenue was the minor variance application, where you're saying, okay, I'm gonna leave this stuff where it is and submit an application and hope that you have city staff approval, but you don't need to have city staff approval. It's always good, but you would then make a presentation to our committee, and you would see how we would respond. So that was what you started, it sounds like, with your application being generated. And then through discussions, you've had a change of heart, and it looks like now you're going to try and come into compliance by moving these things into compliance. So the option, and it's kind of difficult, but the option is to go through the hearing process and see what the committee says without the support of staff, and follow this thing through. You've already committed the time and the energy, and so you'll be relying on the decision of the 5 of us, or you do what you're doing right now and you stick to the idea that you want to withdraw the application, because a lot of work would already have been done by city staff to guide you through the process, comment on the procedures. So staff time and effort has been spent. So the refund, would be something that we'd be looking at fairly carefully.
I did leave out one important thing, if I could mention that, please. I was also advised by both of them that my chances were not that great having it passed by the inspectors upon their visits to me. So that was the reason why I'm sitting here, basically. So not only did I have advice or advisement from them, but they also told me that there's a good chance it might not pass, and this was a clear path to take and in my best interest. So
Yeah,
that's
but
why.
their advice is an opinion, whereas our
Okay,
our
I'm sorry, I don't mean
our
to be
decision is final. No, it's
disrespectful
not- it's
or
not-
anything, I'm
no,
just,
it's not a disrespect.
this has just been so taxing.
I'm just saying there's an opportunity to
yeah.
to pursue this further, not considering the other comments that you received, if you wished to. We are a separate body of people looking at this independent of any other, well, independently. We have the staff report as our guide, we have your application, and we have the physical situation, but we are an independent review opportunity. So one option is to consider that and we could defer this, but we should actually have the planner who dealt with you speak to this application, so we have the other side of the story. So is the planning person available? Please.
So through the chair, when a property is not in compliance with zoning bylaw, one option is either to comply, or the second option is to apply for committee of adjustment for staff review. Originally, when the application came to me, I was reviewing it, and development engineering commented on the problems with drainage and grading, and the request was from them to get that plan. Till this day, we didn't get grading and drainage design plan. Yeah. The application was deferred based on the grading and drainage concerns. I have not evaluated the application because your request was for the deferral. We don't have a report presented with recommendation for denial or approval. I was not involved in the conversations with building and bylaw, so I'm not sure what resolution is there for you.
That's okay, we're not looking, thank you. Committee member Leask?
Do you understand the distinction between what has been said to you in terms of the 2 avenues? The one avenue is to ask for forgiveness, essentially, okay? That's what we do here. We see people every day or every month apply for forgiveness. The other option is you become in conformity with the bylaw. Those are the 2 options. The process is such that when you apply for forgiveness, in other words, through minor variance applications, the city, through their planning department, writes a report as to whether they can see fit to support that request, okay? So that's a technical report. So we see the technical report, and the five of us, in our own minds, evaluate the file, some of which is based on the technical report, some of which is based on our own thoughts, and so on, okay? So I'm a little perplexed as to why, and again, I know it's all new to you, so it sounds to me like you were impacted by some comments that were made by some building officials, the chief building official and so on, to back off from your asking for forgiveness and pivot to, okay. And the reason was because they seemed to indicate to you, you haven't got a chance of being successful? Is that what I'm hearing?
So the first time we were advised to seek the variance, and we were told it was going to go through, and then at the very last, there was a breach with the grading in that, and actually I've been to City Hall over a dozen times over this, so I did show compliance that I had gone into the grading in that, and there is a history there where the previous neighbor, we had an understanding we were pumping the water, so it was dug down for the water to go there intentionally, and the one back neighbor, they built up that. So nothing's changed over that. It's still, both all the yards do flood out in heavy rainfall on the back end because of the drainage. That's been an ongoing issue I've lived there for 35 years, and that was an issue from day one when I moved in. But what happened was, when we looked at this, we were advised to do a variance, and we were going to do the variance. Then we were offered an olive branch, that for an extension on it. And then there were some reports done, but my issue is that no one has ever let me have a say, or no one's come to visit me, other than the building inspector said it was good with the building, but I am a construction millwright. I have a tremendous training in everything. Like, I've been down in the States for drainage and everything else, so I do have great expertise in pumps and everything else, and I've never been given the chance until I had the visit by the building inspector and by the officer who was looking after the charges, and they advised me. So I'm a God-fearing, I follow the rules. I'm sorry, sir, but I was told to do the variance, and then now I'm being told to do compliance. And it's been my experience in my lifetime, when an authority tells me or advises me to do something, if I do it, I'm in compliance. So that was where I'm coming from, honestly.
So did you build these structures that weren't in conformity with the bylaw? Is that what's happened?
The two that aren't of major, one is a 18-inch shed, like a demo shed that I put against my fence. I did that, and I know that, and I've since moved that. I've taken a whole bunch of time and spent money, and I put that against my building. The other one was a pergola that was built around the hot tub. We couldn't get exact specifications. I just got exact specifications, 6 inches off the property line for the top, and then my vertical posts have to be 24 inches. My shed that was in the back, I did not know that there was not a permit taking out for that. When the pool was installed prior to me moving there 25 years ago, there was a shed, 10 by 14 steel shed. I have pictures and documentation to prove that. As that shed decayed and got decrepit, what I did was I moved and I replaced the fence when I moved in. I moved from where we thought the property line was, we moved it in 6 inches, and then I built my pool shed there. I was advised, like when I did come down City Hall, but I was told that because of the structure itself is less than 10 by 10, but the canopy, I was told didn't matter, but now apparently it does matter. So the walls, like I say, are off by 4 inches and 2.2 inches, as far as I know, until I get the official survey documentation. And right now, it's not in compliance, my pool shed. So
I'm going to intervene, if I may. Mic's off. So what you're doing is participating in a minor variance application if we were actually, so that was exactly what you'd be doing. This is your time if we were to proceed, rather than give you your request to not proceed with the minor variance, to withdraw. This would be your time to say all of these things, and we would consider your the evidence that you're giving and your situation, and if it's 100 millimeters or 600 millimeters, switching it to metric, that's what, the whole purpose for us is to consider the variances to the zoning bylaw. So not everybody's in compliant, but there are times when we have, our only job is to consider whether or not variances can be issued. So without going in, since right now the issue is you want to withdraw, we've started into actually a hearing, which was not what you want. What we're trying to propose to you is you have an option right now here tonight. I think we have enough information. Oh, maybe we don't, yes?
The application was deferred for a year pending the receipt of a grading and drainage plan design. And upon receiving that, whether it be returned, it would have to come back to a future hearing. The deadline for that was, it was a June 29th hearing, so it would have to return June 20th, whether there is a grading plan if you received it, or go forward with the application. So I just want to make sure that it gets
Yeah.
recirculated
Right.
to advise everyone.
Thank you. So you're going to have to spend money on a civil engineer to provide a grading plan if you haven't already. Or you're going to have to spend money to come into compliance by moving these things around. And maybe that's just your time and not money. That's what you should be evaluating, whether or not you want to withdraw this thing or you want to hear the meeting, but we can't hear it this evening because we need to recirculate it, so it would be next month. But it's still a crapshoot as to whether or not we're going to decide one way or the other. But what you were asking for about your time to defend yourself, this is exactly the process where that happens. So to summarize, we can continue with your request to withdraw and your request for reimbursement of funds, or if you think you have a case with some reasonable people here to consider it, you can come back next month and we can hear your case. But you are required to have the grading plan.
Hi, my name's Jessica Roberts. I'm the owner's daughter. I think that the issue here is that the variance was deferred based on neighbors' comments about assumed natural swale within the neighborhood with zero foundation of that, that claim. I guess all of the neighbors got together and have decided that their downspouts that come off of all four of their garages and deflect into their backyards don't matter, and that my father's property was the reason why the neighborhood is flooding. My father provided the drainage that he had from his garages and all of his other documentation. He started his process of getting a legal survey. He does not currently have a drainage plan that is done complete as of right now from the survey company. However, nothing has changed, but the frustration is that his variance wasn't approved based off of a claim that also goes against bylaw, which is that they're using their neighboring properties for drainage.
Okay, so all of this is completely understood by us. But what we also understand is you're reacting to some information that you have had along the way without having had the one opportunity to do exactly what you're doing now, is to make your case. But we're not actually officially hearing your case because what you've actually asked for is a withdraw the application. So if it takes another couple of $100 and a couple days to get that grading plan finished that you've already started, and if you feel strongly about the strength of your application with us having reviewed it, we can defer this for another month. If you want to wait another month, get that thing finished, submit it, and we can hear the arguments you're trying to make right now on an actual hearing. But you're not asking for a hearing, you're asking to withdraw this. So this is kind of a do or die moment, and you can stick with what you want and then continue to go into compliance, which is an option that sounds like you're being encouraged to do, or you can ask for the minor variances in a hearing.
I think that it would be in our best interest to ask for a deferral until the June meeting. The goal was that we weren't going to hit dates and fall again into issues with not making certain dates. Because it's my understanding that it's going both ways because we submitted everything that we had, which was city-approved, and that's being ignored.
Thank you. I just want to ask,
Jump in.
well, just want to ask planning, with respect to the required document, I don't have all of the details in front of us because this was a request for withdrawal. The grading plan, the existing non-complying structures, the existing non-compliant structures would be picked up in a survey. The grading plan would show the flow of surface water across the property as it is right now. With that information and a deferral, would that be the only information that they need to have a whole application, whether or not city staff could support it, but that would be all that is required?
Yes, that is correct. However, I'm not sure how long it's going to take for you to get that drainage plan. So if you think that you need more time and you will not make it to June 20th meeting, I will ask Elaine if we can provide them with more time, because we will not want you to then come and ask for deferral again if you don't have that plan prepared in advance. Would you have time to get that plan ready by that meeting?
Through me.
Respectfully, why, I'm just trying to figure out, he had submitted the drainage that was approved with his garage application, and nothing has changed since then?
So
So why is
your
it-
property is a whole thing with a
Right.
bunch of things on it, your house, your shed, your pergola, your hot tub. So if there was a grading plan provided with one of those pieces that was added, but doesn't capture the entire property as it is right now, with the way water is flowing, what they're looking for now is a drainage plan that shows the existing situation now, with the existing things on it, where they are, and where water is going.
Nothing has changed in the past
Okay.
35 years. The pool has stayed the same level, so nothing has changed,
So rather than taking your word for it, they want a civil engineer to do a grading plan, apply their seal and say, you know, this is what's actually going on here in support of the application, presumably. And that's sort of the missing document. It sounds like that would make your application whole. It may not convince staff of anything, but it would allow you to come back here with a whole application for us to review a month from now or 2 months from now.
The other important criteria is that there is no drainage plan for that subdivision.
Doesn't matter, we're
It
just talking
doesn't
about your property.
exist.
Within
Yeah.
your property lines is all we're looking at right now. Carrie?
It's clear we understand the anxiety surrounding these types of processes, number one. Number two, you've paid your application fee. We have a letter in front of us from city staff that seems to indicate that a lot of city staff time has already been dedicated to this file, or so it appears. So you have to understand that the request for reimbursement could be a yes, it could be a no. We're presented, and I'm not prejudging it, I'm not taking a position. I'm just saying that in the letter that we have, see, sometimes people bail early, sometimes people bail later, and it's a matter of staff time and how much is in at various times. So there may be a chance that you would see your application fee gone, okay, not reimbursed, okay? So we're trying to help you through the fog, and Greg said it very astutely. You have a decision right now, and that is you move forward with your request, you take your chances on what we do with your money, or you say, hold tight, we're going to ask for a deferral, and we're going to work through the process. Try not to listen to all these voices that are going on. It's your call. I think we've summarized it, I believe.
Then I would ask for a deferral. Like I say, I thought it was very clear cut. I'm doing what the head chief building inspector and the bylaw officer who actually filed the complaint told me to do, so I'm really confused here, I'll be honest with you. Yes, correct, yes. But I'm retired. I get $2,000 a month pension to live on, so I'm spent $5,000, and then I'm going to lose
Yeah.
$3,500, and then I've already spent about $3,000 or $4,000 already, and then I'm just going in circles, spending tons of money, and I'm no farther ahead than I was day one from the first complaint.
You're further ahead in that you're almost ready to come back to the Committee of Adjustment, which is what I heard you say. Can you confirm that you wanted to defer your application to a future hearing, please?
Please confirm.
Does,
Well, we're ready to circulate in another week or so, but it's depending on whether a grading and drainage plan can be done by that time.
I'm also
we
Or
waiting.
if that's the, if that's what,
we obviously haven't seen what your grading plan looks like. Are you confident that your relationship with your civil engineer and the amount of work that's done is something that they would be able to accommodate finishing off whatever they started?
I don't have a relationship with a civil engineer, sir. I
But
don't.
you've started a grading plan?
I have proof and documentation through pictures and
Yeah,
through
no,
previous things,
so
but
what-
I have
so-
not done a drainage plan, and I'm also waiting the official results of my survey. I have stakes in the ground, but I have not received official results from the survey.
Oh, we're making this difficult.
I'm sorry, but that's.
So the
that's
issue
where I am,
is,
yeah.
you're going to need this grading plan. So if it hasn't been started, you're going to spend more money on it. And the evaluation you have to make is the money you've spent, the cost you're going to have to move things versus the money you're going to have to spend to get this grading plan provided, and the chance that we are not going to approve your application. That's your situation, and only you can make the decision as to what you want to do. So you can cut your losses, or you can-
Making that decision, sir, though, if I say I'm going to defer, get a grading plan, then I get denied on my variance, then I'm back to compliance then?
Yes?
Okay.
I think just to clarify, if staff recommends denial, you can still come to this committee and we can approve the application with conditions or deny the application and agree with staff if that's their recommendation. What staff says is not necessarily the final ruling. Do you understand
That's how we
that?
started, that's how we started this. That was my clarification at the start of this thing.
Basically, you're saying you're the government body, and although I may have staff recommendations, ultimately you are the source or power source or whatever you want to call it. Right. Okay.
The deferral,
and evaluate which direction you want to go.
the deferral doesn't cost you anything, it's just, it's time. And if at the end of that time, if you come right back here and haven't spent one more cent, you'd be in exactly the same situation where you said, you know,
Yeah.
that past month, I didn't move the ball forward, so I am going to continue with the request for withdrawal. So at this point, we're buying you some time to think about what you want to do for another month.
So I will do that, sir, but I don't know if I can get the report together and everything within the 30 days. That you
I'll
require.
have, David, do you want to comment?
I just, this was asked to be deferred for a year. Can we defer it for up to 4 months to give the gentleman time to,
Well, we're a month away from that year deadline.
I understand. I mean, he might get it done, but we at
It's
least
up
give him
to
some
you.
time.
yeah.
Up to us. Well, let's, you
Can I
gonna
make a motion?
prepare a motion? Okay, clarify, we're about to put on the table a motion to give you the time to think more about what you want to do. Ideally, you're gonna stick up for what you believe is a solid application, get the paperwork done, and we'll be here in the future to hear your argument officially.
I
David?
just have one question of you, because I'm hoping you can answer before I do the motion. How long do you've done things of this nature, how long do you think it'll take the gentleman to,
It's a busy time of year, but most
Fine.
projects are already kind of done and are shovel-ready, so it's quite likely that the engineering world could be available for this. But just one clarification.
but if we deferred it by 4 months,
Sure,
there's a
I
good
think
chance
that
that it
should
would be.
should be adequate. Does the general public have an opportunity to speak to this situation?
Well, the request was to withdraw. They'll be able to speak to it when it returns to the hearing.
So the person in the gallery who had their hand raised, so we're not having a hearing on this application. We're having a discussion about how this application is going to proceed. Right now, the request is to have it withdrawn, and we're highlighting, we're not well, I'll explain. We're not intending to encourage, we're highlighting what that means to withdraw versus not actually going ahead with the hearing. And the owner is making a decision based on that. So to the applicant, it sounds like we are prepared to put a motion on the table for deferral of this application. Doesn't cost you anything, and you can decide what happens. We would like to proceed with that motion. Okay, thank you. David?
I'd like to move that we defer, is there an application number? A5423 for up to 4 months. Understanding that when the paperwork's available, it can be brought forward and moved into any of the meetings in between.
So all those in favor of the deferral? Okay, so to the applicant, your application has been deferred. The requirements of the application are still required. And if you decide between now and then you want to continue with the withdrawal, you still have that opportunity. So you have time to think about your situation, but you can't talk to any of us in that time because, okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next on our agenda is 9 Michigan Avenue. And this is a staff request for deferral for minor variance to allow the applicant time to work with the NPCA in resolving their concerns. The applicant or agent has arrived at the podium, or at their seat. Would you like to comment further on this staff request for deferral?
Little speaky person. Evening committee, evening chair. Correct, we're just here to table the application in hopes of having additional conversations with the MPCA.
Lovely, thank you. So the applicant is in favor of the staff recommendation for deferral. Any questions of the applicant? If not, somebody please make a motion.
Is there an idea of timeline for deferral?
Will you be able to handle this in a month, or do you want more than that?
You've probably dealt with the MPCA, so probably more than a month.
What year is it?
It's a tricky application, and I'm hopeful with some quick discussions with the MPCA that'll be a quick turnaround. But I would like to think within the next 2 months, it should be tidied up and back here at the latest.
He's asking for 4. A motion?
I move that application A2624 be deferred for up to 4 months.
All those in favor of the motion? Great, your application for deferral has been approved.
Cheers,
4
thank you
months.
very much.
72 Vine Street, come on down. The agent is requesting a deferral of the consent application for an easement until such time as the conditions of the consent for 15 Yale Crescent are met, if approved at this evening's hearing. Okay. So anything you wish to add to your request for deferral?
No, because the next portion will be the remaining application.
We might as well deal with the, how much time you think it will be required for you to get your information in order to come back to see us for an actual hearing. 4 months?
Sure.
All right.
Well, we can put it on 4 months because once we're asking for the boundary adjustment portion of the application, and in that condition is the easement portion. So once the easement is created, we'll be able to come back. We're hoping to have that for the June meeting, but there are multiple conditions on the application that is in the next portion.
I'd like to ask the Secretary Treasurer if she's okay with our 4-month idea on these things.
I would think a little bit longer, just in case, just to make so you don't have to come back for extension. You can always come back sooner. I would say at least 6.
Would you like
But that's
to
up to you.
tap into that good
That's
advice?
just,
I would do, like,
you can
again, it's the
come
blanket
soon.
easement, so it shouldn't be that much longer. So again, I would just stick with the.
so this is with regard to the easements, the specific easements?
Yes.
Okay,
Well,
so-
no, we're doing the blanket easement,
Yes.
which covers it, which covers
Sorry.
the blanket easement covers the condition within the application.
Yes. So just to confirm, I'm just through you, Chair, just to explain, the blanket easement is registered based on the boundary adjustment occurring. The other specific easements applications are returning for a future hearing pending the blanket easement being removed. So once
Oh,
that's
those
removed,
ones,
okay,
yeah.
yeah,
we're
so
doing-
that's what
right,
I'm explaining.
Right, so
yeah.
then, yes, so then I would go with the 6 months to do that, because we have to get the blanket easement first,
Yeah.
correct? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
We're selling time here this evening. Would anybody like to read an motion regarding a 6-month deferral? Jamal?
4 months, right? Or 6 months?
6.
Okay.
6.
I move application B 58-22 be deferred for 6 months.
All those in favor of the motion for deferral, 6 months? Thank you. Your deferral's been unanimously approved. And now you're here for the next one, which would be our regular roster of applications we're actually going to be hearing and discussing this evening, starting with 15 Yale Crescent. And that means I need to switch gears quickly. Bear with me. Would the applicant please come down and be seated? And while you're coming down, I'll just find my bookmarks. Okay, would the applicant please, so let me, okay, I think I bought enough time here. 15 Yale Crescent? No, 35 Yale Crescent. Is there a 15 Yale Crescent in here? Right, thank you. I was trying to do it online, I had paper, okay. So this is a consent application for land, consent to sever a portion of land, parts 2, 3, 4, and 11, to be added to an abutting southerly parcel of land to facilitate construction of an addition, drop-off loading area between two buildings. The remnant parcel to be retained will be continued for commercial purposes, and Part 5 will be dedicated to the city for the purposes of a municipal road widening. So is there anything you wish to add to that, our understanding of that synopsis of the application?
Nope, unfortunately, you haven't been here for the last couple meetings, but we've gone over this a couple times. Sorry. I don't have much more to add.
Exhaustion has set in. Any questions?
Pretty
from members
much.
of any questions or clarifications from the members of the committee?
Through you, Chair, are you okay with all the conditions that have been suggested?
Yes, the one I'm waiting on is condition number 4. It is in the permit. I'm just waiting on clarification from Mr. Lane, but the conditions that are in there we're fine with.
Is there any members of the gallery wish to speak to this application this evening? I have to ask it 3 times? No. All right, thank you. Would someone like to make a motion regarding this consent application?
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move the consent application B0524 SC as presented in the notice of hearing be approved, subject to the conditions outlined in the technical report, as they are desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, have no adverse impacts on the surrounding properties, have regard for Section 5124 of the Planning Act, conform with the policies of the city's official plan and zoning bylaw, maintain the intent and purpose of the provincial policy statement, and do not conflict with any applicable provincial plans.
All those in favor of the motion? To the applicant, your application has been approved unanimously. All right, thank you so much. Our next application is for 27 Corbett Avenue. Minor variance application. I gotta stop clicking that pen. To facilitate the expansion of a detached dwelling And to operate a dwelling as a bed and breakfast, there are 2 minor variances associated with this application, and the applicant or agent has been seated. So would you please like to offer any more information regarding this file?
Sure thing. Kristen McNutt from Jordan Station Design Co. I have a very brief presentation for you guys to address staff comments.
Cue the presentation.
Okay. Want me to just say next slide every time? Okay. Okay. So just to very quickly summarize the intent of the application. So there's 2 minor variances that we're looking at. One is for request for a reduction in parking, which is required 1 stall per bedroom of a bed and breakfast use. And then the other is to permit a reduction in the required minimum interior side yard setback to a carport addition. You can go next slide. Our application was previously submitted for the last meeting date, so April 17th. So our proposal since then has changed a little bit. Previously, it was reduction from 3 parking spaces to 2 parking spaces in conjunction with the bed and breakfast use. We did receive comments from Community Recreation and Culture Services where we made the decision to defer and alter the application. It's important to us and our client and the community that parking is provided in a thoughtful manner, meaning that it takes consideration of the site characteristics, including the existing city-owned tree, existing landscaped area. So instead of creating additional parking on site that we feel would create an impact on the streetscape and result in less desirable driveway width, our application seeks to further reduce the parking requirements now. All right, and then a little bit more on the existing site context. So currently on the subject property, we have the existing single-story detached dwelling. There's no existing garage or carport. The subject property is currently utilized for single-family dwelling use, but the intent of the application is to provide a bed and breakfast use on the ground floor and then the single-family use on the basement level. So it's important to note this is located in Port Dalhousie. It's a prominent tourism area due to the proximity to the waterfront, beaches, and highway access. Community is home to various short and long-term rentals, bed and breakfast uses, and vacation rentals, many of which have also required other parking reductions as part of the process to obtain their short-term rental licensing. Just briefly look at the site plan. So as a result of the previous deferral, all exterior alterations on the site that were previously proposed were abandoned at the recommendation of staff to ensure that all on-site parking that was provided was functional in terms of maneuvering space. So this mitigates any potential impact on this existing city-owned tree on site, and the intent of the application is to facilitate all the existing parking within the existing driveway, which intends to reduce the visual impact of excessive parking within existing neighborhood. Currently, the driveway is an appropriate width for the subject area, and the parking isn't an overarching focus on the front yard area. So furthermore, the variance requested for the future proposed carport would be the only exterior alteration that we're seeking at this time. Next slide. Yeah. You've seen the elevations. So I just wanted to take a second to address the staff comments from the report. Obviously, we're looking at a recommendation of denial for the first variance for the reduction in parking. So we are somewhat dismayed to see this. Overall, after reading the staff report, it appears that staff have made several educated guesses and assumptions towards the overall use of the bed and breakfast rental. We'd just like to take the opportunity to address some of these comments and clarify these. So in regards to the number of occupants for the bed and breakfast rental, our client intends to only rent the upstairs to a singular family at one time. Based on staff comments, they made the assumption that the bed and breakfast rental could facilitate up to 3 families at one time. That's not the intent of this rental. Therefore, the exact opposite can actually be presumed, that if there's going to only be one family occupying the rental space at one time, there should only be need for one parking space in terms of the bed and breakfast use. Parking is also something that can be stipulated through the rental advertisement. And one other item to note is that the owner will be occupying the basement, and he does have a second property on Corbett Avenue. Therefore, if needed, he could park his own personal vehicle at that site, off-site. However, he's not anticipating the need to require more than one parking space for the bed and breakfast use at this time. Staff also commented on the availability of alternative modes of transportation. Based on the comments in the staff report, they are under the assumption that visitors to the city will arrive using vehicular transportation, and that might be the only mode of transportation that they'll use in their time here. I'd also like to take the time to note that Port Dalhousie is very well serviced for public transportation, rideshare, taxi, Uber, and is also very walkable. And then also to address the comment about bicycle parking, it's not a requirement of a bed and breakfast use or residential use, but there's many opportunities to provide that on site if needed. So just going through the 4 tests, in regards to the parking reduction in conjunction with the bed and breakfast use, we're of the opinion that the parking requirement reduction is minor in nature. Although on paper it seems 3-to-1 is a larger ask, the reduction actually results in many positive contributions to the site and contextually makes sense for the use of the property. The reduction in parking is equivalent to the overall use of the rental space, which will only be for singular family rental and the single family residence as well. And it's been proven that there are multiple other options for transportation, such as public transport or active transportation. And then for variance for the parking, we're of the opinion the parking reduction is still desirable and appropriate for the use of the land. We feel that providing the required number of spaces for the rental use would actually not be a desirable or appropriate use of the subject property. We feel the parking 3 or even 2 spaces for the bed and breakfast use would be excessive. We don't want parking to become overarching on the front yard of this property. It's just not in character with the streetscape or the neighborhood. Next slide. Sorry. And then for the intent of the zoning bylaw, we're of the opinion that both of these variances maintain and uphold the general intent of these bylaw requirements. The parking reduction for the bed and breakfast use is from 3-to-1, which still provides an appropriate number of stalls for the overall use of the property. There's no intent to rent to more than one family at a time. It's also important to note that the proposal is considerate of all other applicable zoning bylaw provisions that might be considered, especially landscape, parking, and driveway coverage. And then our application still maintains the intent of the official plan as well. In regards to bed and breakfast uses, the Garden City plan permits bed and breakfast uses and actually encourages rentals as a way to promote appropriate tourism uses within the city. Approval of this variance would mean addition to the responsible tourist rental supply within existing residential area within the built-up area. An area that's already serviced municipally and provides active transportation and public transportation. So just to conclude, we're of the opinion that this meets the 4 tests for the minor variance. To conclude, we just want to remind the committee of the goal for this proposal to obtain the bed and breakfast license in a manner that contributes to safe and meaningful tourist rentals. Our client wants to emphasize that the intent is not to pack this full of tourists, rather to allow for a single family to occupy the ground floor from time to time in a bed and breakfast manner. There's no need for parking to become the primary focus of this site, especially for rental use. Therefore, we feel the application should be approved, but I'd like to open the floor if the committee has any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Before I invite the committee to ask any questions, I'm just going to share an observation that I had in that many of the comments presented in the presentation relied on the intent of the owner to use the property in a certain way or be able to park off-site, whereas our decision is related to the property in perpetuity. So our decision to this evening will apply to the next owner and the next owner and the next owner, and how they choose to use the property, whether it's, to maximize rental space to as many people as they want to, or it's a single family, or whether or not they have the opportunity to park their car somewhere else or not. So, so there's a bit of a picture being painted by the city saying that, this building exists as it is and has the capacity for a more intense use. And then the flip side is, but that's not going to be the intent of this owner and how they operate this particular building. But our decision relates to the, how the building operates from here to the future, and not on how it's being currently operated by one, a particular person's interest. Are there any questions of the committee members to the applicant? Tom?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and to expand on what you said, I'm not sure if staff might have an answer for this, but understanding what we might be voting on, does the short-term rental licensing process dictate the uses of the property? To elaborate on kind of what you were saying, the intended rental uses for, like, is that written in the rental license agreement?
I'll have to ask if there's a bylaw that speaks to that.
Through the chair, through the rental licensing bylaw, there's licensing for both short-term rentals and bed and breakfast, so I believe the license is specific to the use that's applied for. So if the application was for bed and breakfast use, that would be built into the license that's issued, and they'd be tested against zoning compliance through that process.
But the potential of this building to provide occupancy beyond a family versus, or whatever, still exists as a bed and breakfast or a short-term rental.
Through the chair, yes. I guess the intent of the operator to limit those 3 bedrooms to 1 family rather than 3 independent renters, I don't think that's controlled or limited through the licensing process. That's not something that the city defines.
Any other questions, committee members? Carrie?
Through you to planning. So you made your comments on the basis of the worst-case scenario in your view, which would be permitted, and that is renting the 3 bedrooms separately, correct? Who am I looking at? Okay.
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. So the intent of a bed and, or what the bed and breakfast is defined as in the bylaw is that multiple guests can stay within a room or beds can be rented out. So basically the intent of that is the bed and breakfast. It has the potential to be rented out to more than 1 party at a time.
Could you be so kind as to elaborate on the difference between a bed and breakfast and a short-term rental, please?
Yep, through the chair. So a bed and breakfast, again, typically the owner or operator is present to prepare a meal, typically breakfast, to the guests or parties that are staying at the bed and breakfast, whereas a short-term rental is the owner it is their primary residence, and they will, vacate the dwelling for a period of time up to 28 days and rent it out to a party, and that's they're not present at the site.
Any members in the gallery wish to speak to this application? None? Thank you. Does the applicant want to respond to anything that has been said?
Through the chair, maybe just wanted to clarify from staff. I know you said the application is evaluated for the remainder of the use of the property as a bed and breakfast. Can you comment on if this changed ownership, if the bed and breakfast license has to be renewed for the new owner? because that would obviously, if our client uses it for just bed and breakfast for one family, maybe if it needs a new owner to sign off on the license, that would change the use.
But there would still be a parking reduction as a result of this application.
Yeah.
That the more intense use would, no, they would already, no, they would have this parking reduction
Understood.
already. Okay. Yep. Is there a comment from the planning?
Through the chair, yes. So if an operator changes, then the license would need to be updated to reflect the new operator. However, again, because nothing in our bylaws can regulate who is renting or how many parties are renting the B&B, that's beyond the control of the city. So that wouldn't be within the licensing regardless.
Thank you for the clarification. Anything else you wish to add? Jamal?
Through the chair, I'm just curious, does the licensing have like an expiry date?
Through the chair, yes, it does. I don't know off the top of my head the length of it, but I would say between 1 and 2 years, and we could confirm that in the licensing bylaw if need be.
Thank you.
But either way, there will still be, depending on the request is to have deficient parking than what's expected to be provided. And one of the arguments is they're going to limit the use of the occupants as per the current owner's management of the rental. Whereas I'm suggesting that the building is the size that it is, will remain the size that it is, will have the amount of parking spaces at the end of this decision, and then the next person can max it out and there will be insufficient parking and they'll be on the street and so on. So there's just part of it is someone promising to behave a certain way to reduce the impact of one of these variances that is just really based on their promise to behave a certain way. At this point, if there's no more, Tom?
Through you to staff, is there a mechanism to recognize partial parking at all? I mean, I'm just looking at the site plan, and it looks like, I know tandem parking isn't allowed, but it looks like there might be the facility for like 1.5 parking spots if you're riding a motorcycle or something.
1.5. The city is very rigid. It's this by this, or it's not a parking spot at all.
No, but understanding like a motorcycle probably would fit here, but if you're driving a car, it would probably be tight.
There should be an answer to the question, or is alternative size vehicles such as a motorcycle considered in the parking calculation?
Through the chair, typically, no, that's not something that staff typically consider. We would rather just recognize less or deficient parking than half-size spaces.
I drove a smart car for 10 years, and believe me, that was only half a car. Okay, at this point, a motion would be appreciated without any emotion. Looking for the committee member to put their hand up and jump into this. It's our job. Anybody? Thank you, Carrie.
I gotta get this mic thing sorted out, right? Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance application, I'll get there. You got it? A1924, as presented in the technical report, be approved as the variances. How do I say that? Because we're basically denying one and accepting the other, right? As the first variance is minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and is in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, whereas the second variance. You're backwards. Have I got it backwards? I don't think so.
No, you
So
don't.
far, so good.
If you're following the notice of hearing, the first variance is regarding the interior side yard, and the second variance is regarding the parking space.
Yeah.
If you're doing the technical report, it has been flipped.
Okay, yeah, I knew there was some confusion between the two. I just wanted to make sure I was consistent. Whereas the second one is not minor in nature, not appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and is not in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
All those in
You
favor of the
happy with that?
all those in favor of the motion read in support of staff recommendation, show of hands. Anybody opposed? 4 in favor of the motion, 1 opposed. Tom? So to the applicant, minor variance 1 approved, minor variance 2 denied. Thank you.
Shit, my voice is going crazy.
21 Constantine Avenue, minor variance application. A number of them. Hello and welcome. I guess typically we ask you to state your name and address, but in this case, we want that. So name and address, please.
Yeah, we can do that. I'm Rand. Oh, there we go. Rand Meshke, and this is my sister, Dina Meshke.
And with respect to your application for the 7 variances, is there anything you wish to highlight to us about them?
Yeah. So first of all, we're aware that the technical report is to approve the minor variances. Thank you for that. We appreciate the planning department's guidance throughout the process, and we thank everybody for their time. The one thing I wanted to bring up, first of all, is I wanted to explain a bit of the brief history behind the deck. So our application arose as a result of a bylaw violation notice that we received in August, basically saying our front deck violates the minimum setback bylaw. In the process, we were advised also that the sheds similarly violate a setback bylaws. The sheds in the front deck were actually not built by us. They were built by the prior owners. Yeah, the 2 sheds are at the rear of the property. So the sheds and the front deck were built by the prior owners. The city was aware of the deck when it was built. They actually investigated it and they didn't do anything. They allowed it to stay. The violation notice came to us 5 years after we moved in and 7 years after the prior owners actually built the deck. So this property, it's in a heritage district, and I think it's important to note that we've already gone through the process of obtaining approval from the Heritage Committee. The Heritage Committee commended us for going through this process, basically doing the work that the prior owner should have done in the first place. They sympathized with us because we didn't actually make the changes, we just inherited them, and now we're having to incur the costs and do all the work to obtain the approvals. The Heritage Committee, I know you don't have to do what the Heritage Committee did, but basically they had very good reasons for recommending or approving our application. So 1, they felt that the deck and the pergola are consistent with the neighborhood. 2, in their opinion, the changes have actually dramatically or remarkably, I think was the word used, improved the aesthetics of the front of the home. In forming that opinion, they were able to view photos that we submitted, historical Google images from showing what it looked like pre-deck, pre-pergola, and post-deck and pergola. They also said that the work has already been done, so why would they make us remove the work that's already been done, especially when it's already enhancing the aesthetic. It's only improving the property. I wanted to comment about the sheds. So basically the only party that I saw mentioned in the report that took any issue with the minor variances that we're requesting approval for was the Community Recreation and Culture Services, CRCS. So I'm happy to provide my comments on CRCS's concerns if that's going to assist the committee with their decision today. Otherwise, I can skip over it just for the sake of time.
I think you always have that opportunity if you get a sense that it's needed with respect to the questions being asked. So I think, so we received the report and all the staff departments. Ultimately, it's the summary of the planning staff's report that we look at, support or denial, and you have the support. So let's just, if you don't mind, we can ask the committee if they have any questions.
Sure.
Tom?
If there's no questions, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Well, let's ask anybody in the gallery if they have any, if they're here to speak to this application. We have somebody, so would you please come down and sit at the head of the horseshoe? Get familiar with the microphone system and how to turn it on. We'll want your name and address also, please. That's great.
Okay, can you hear me? So my name is Liz Andrew. I am the neighbor of Dina and Rand. My husband is here as well, so we live right next door. We would say that the porch that's there is lovely. It adds to the neighborhood. There are plenty of other houses on the street that have the exact same setup, likely due to, I mean, I don't know why, but there's things that are built out. It's a historical district, so I think people just did things, and I'm not sure about all the zoning, but what I will say is it's lovely. We love to see our neighbors sitting out on the front porch, enjoying, and I just think it adds to the neighborhood. So I know our other neighbors who aren't here may have written in, but I know that they feel the same. So I just wanted to express my support.
Thank you. That's, it helps a lot. In the kumbaya moment that we're in, is there any questions that the members of the committee have for the speaker? Nope. Okay, great. Thank you so much. You may return to your seat.
Thank you, Liz. We didn't pay her to say that, by the way. Yeah.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to this application, for or against? Okay, we'll leave it at
I
the
do
four.
have a couple issues. I know just regarding there's a condition that a building permit be obtained, and I wanted to speak to that today.
Is there a condition that a building permit be obtained? There is
Oh,
not.
so I'm creating conditions
Don't
on
cause
my own.
trouble for yourself, please.
No, oh, okay, never mind. There is something else I wanted to speak to, though, if I can do that. It's regarding possible reimbursement for the minor variance application fee.
We didn't see that coming.
That'll be the last thing I ask for today.
Okay, we'll consider that as a second motion. So to the committee, any clarifications required, any questions asked? Do we want to make a motion, does someone want to put a motion on the table with respect to the approval, the consideration for the approval of the minor variances?
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance application A2224, as presented in the notice of hearing, be approved as the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Thank you. All those in favor of that motion? So that's passed unanimously. It would appear as though, well, I suppose you can't just ask for a refund. Why do you think you deserve a refund?
I think this is kind of a set of exceptional circumstances that we found ourselves in that I believe justifies reimbursement for the fee. First of all, the city knew about the front deck. When it was first built by the prior owners in 2016, they actually investigated it and did nothing. For this reason, the city has already agreed to reduce the minor variance application fee, and we're grateful for that reduction. However, frankly, we wouldn't have had to pay any fee. The prior owners would have had to pay that fee in 2016 had the city done their own due diligence and actually investigated to determine whether or not the application was necessary. So in terms of the history of the deck, I've already mentioned we purchased it in 2018, the property. Haven't made any changes to the front deck and pergola. So the deck was actually built in 2016. In the process of trying to get go through the minor variance application process, we came to find out that there were complaints made in 2016, 3 complaints by neighbors when the deck was being built to the city. The city records show those complaints being made 7 years ago, including a very specific complaint regarding proximity of the deck to the front curb. That's exactly the reason that we received the violation notice regarding the minimum setback. The complaint, so there are 3 complaints, like I mentioned. The one that actually should have alerted the city back then was one that said, this is in quotations, there is a raised porch with a full overhang now constructed within 2 feet of the curb. So the city addressed the complaints back in 2017. They assigned them, the way that they addressed it was they assigned the matter to a building inspector, despite being flagged to the proximity issue to the curb. The city decided at that time not to investigate it from a bylaw perspective. Therefore, the deck, that's the reason that the deck was permitted to stay. And now it has become our problem, instead of being the problem of the prior owner that actually constructed it. Again, despite complaints being made to the city. So it's not a situation where the city can claim ignorance because they never received any complaints. So basically, city should have picked up on the bylaw violation back then. We don't feel the city's only obliged to investigate if a member of the public explicitly references a specific bylaw violation. So at the very least, the city should have referred the matter to the appropriate departments, not just department, the planning or the building permit department. They should have realized back then that the proximity of the curb raised some issues with the bylaw. Bottom line, though, is the fact that none of us would be here speaking about this issue today if the city did what they should have done back in 2016 or 2017. Instead, they had a building inspector go to the property, meet with the prior owner in 2017, and tell them, you don't need a building permit, but there was never any mention of any bylaw violations. And I get that building inspectors operate in separate silos from planning. However, that represents the fact that there was a city worker there on site. That represents another missed opportunity for the city to have done its due diligence. That building inspector never went back and said, maybe this is something we should look into further in terms of the bylaw violation.
And that is a great closing argument presented in this week's episode of Law and Order. Thank you. That was very well composed.
Through you to the applicant, you mentioned that you already received a discount. Tell us about that, please.
I believe what the application fee should have been was close to $4,000, and we received a reduction down to, I think it was something in the $1,100 range. So it's not nothing.
Off? 75% off sale?
Yeah, but it's 75% off of what we shouldn't have had to pay in the first place.
Unless the seller reduced their price by
Okay, thank you. Would someone like to, so we've already approved the first motion to grant the minor variances. And now we're looking at the motion for a fee reduction. We know that they've received a fee reduction in recognition by the city of up to 75% of what it would normally have cost. Would somebody like to make a motion? Is there any discussion among ourselves about partial, full, or none, or just want to put a motion on the table and we'll vote on it? Excellent.
I move that we deny the application for a further reduction, eliminating $1,100 or whatever it is. I don't even have to provide the number.
Nope, great. Any discussion of that motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion to deny the refund of the fee? Denied. No, so that request has been denied, but this matter is now behind you with respect to having the minor variances approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's kind of intense. 60 Downing Street. Come on down. We can talk about your minor variances. Proposed 1.5-story detached garage, increase in the maximum accessory building and structure coverage from 10% to 16.2 is the first minor variance request. Second minor variance request is an increase in the maximum height of an accessory building detached garage from 4.5 meters to 6.53 meters. With us this evening is
and staff. I'm Michael Marinick from 2M Architects and the agent on the project. And I'm happy to say I don't come here alone this evening. I am with...
Good evening. My name's Anthony Umbrico. I am married to Claire Burden, who is the property owner, and I currently live at 60 Downing as well.
all right. We'll piece that together. Is there anything that your team would like to add to the application by way of clarification?
Yes, there is, Mr. Chair. I will try to be quick in going through this. First of all, we understand the degree of what is being asked here, both in terms of height and in terms of lot coverage as it pertains to an accessory structure. But I want to clarify that the report seems to imply that what is proposed is not subordinate to the existing house. And I just want to make a couple things clear. That from an area point of view, the existing house is over 1,000 square feet, 1,020, and the proposed garage is 768. So it's hundreds of square feet less and clearly subordinate. From a height point of view, the existing house is approximately 29 foot 10, almost 30 feet, with the garage being 20 foot 10. So again, we're about 30% lower than the house is, clearly subordinate. So that implication in the report is incorrect, and to staff, as far as I'm aware, subordinate is subordinate. There is no degree or measurement or percentage that one must have to deem it subordinate. So it clearly is, and I would just like to point that out. Combining the house coverage and the proposed garage coverage, the house is at about 21.5%, and the garage itself would be at another 16.2, which would give us 37.5% lot coverage. The lot is allowed 45% coverage. Claire and Anthony live in a fairly modest two-story house. They're very happy with that. They don't want to expand the lot coverage, but we're well underneath that. And it seems like the way that the report is written is they're getting penalized because their house is small in nature. And perhaps if you look at the key plan that is shown and look at the hatch diagram, 60 is up at the top. It is one of, if not the smallest house on the street. So the relationship between the house and what is proposed, had they had a monster home on this house that was 10 meters tall, then it would be more subordinate. But they don't have that, and there's no intent to gross the house up and make it disproportionate. And I just want to make that clear, that they shouldn't be getting penalized because they have a very modest house, which they're happy with and fits the character of the neighborhood.
Can we talk about that? Can we talk about the issues as we go along? Or do you want to keep on going with your flow?
Maybe I'll just keep going and then we can hit them. Sure, but I'm not trying to defer or mislead any. The minimum landscape area on the site is 35%. And what is proposed is 41.3%. So the proposed garage is not cutting into any landscape requirements. And in fact, the CRCS in the city's report, and quote, it says, "There's sufficient space can still be accommodated in the rear yard for greening and amenity, notwithstanding the proposed footprint of the garage and the driveway expansion." It's clear there's enough landscape area on the site. I just want to point that out. with Claire and Anthony, we went through all of the neighbors' letters and all of the issues. I grew up in the Glenridge area. I went to Glenridge School. My grandparents owned the store down the street. My mother, at a time, lived on Highland. I know the character of the Glenridge neighborhood well. We've done the townhouses at Glenridge School and so forth. So what is proposed, and if I could, Rosa, are you guiding this? We have the elevations of the garage. What is being proposed at the front in the upper right corner is a quaint garage. It is in keeping with the neighborhood. The house itself, as I mentioned, is small in nature. This garage is not some enormous structure. It's 1.5 stories. We added the faux dormers. Well, they're dormers, but it's just to a storage loft to store things because their basement of the small house isn't sufficient to house it. We recognize in the letters, they refer to the imposing nature of this. I'd like to point out that when we discussed this at the design stage, it was agreed that we would not push this to the 2-foot or 0.6 meter setbacks for ancillary structures. We brought it in 4 feet from the sides and from the back. We're doubling the required setback for an accessory structure. We specifically did not have any overlooking windows on that upper level that would be overreaching or overlooking into someone's backyard. And we added the dormer windows at the front for a curb appeal. So there is some comments too about the sort of unsightly nature from the street. I'm sure the committee went to it. It's a one-way street. You go by very quickly. The driveway is fairly long and thin, and with this proposed at the back, you do not see it unless you stand very specifically in one spot. And when you do see it, you're going to see you will just see that dormer window and so forth. See, it's a very narrow driveway. There's some comments about the loss of the mature trees where the neighbors have enjoyed this, a vista they have. There's no guarantee, first of all, for a vista, and number two, there's no mature trees whatsoever being cut down to accommodate this garage. It's simply incorrect. The letters imply that it'll reduce the character. I would argue that it is in keeping with the old Glenridge neighborhood. And there's no mature trees cut. They reference the increase in driveway length. This was intentional to allow guests because there's no parking on the street permitted. This allows another car to come in. When they have family come over and so forth, there's more parking on site. There are contextual examples of this in the area, in specifically to 10 Willowdale. It is referenced in the report. It says that, well, that's hard to see because it's at the back of the property, which is exactly what is being proposed in this situation. And it says that it was built a long time ago, which is erroneous, and it was built by a building permit issued by the city. You had
Late 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah, it's not a 50-year-old structure as mentioned in the report. And there are other examples in the surrounding neighborhood at 12 and 21 South Drive, 5 Pine Hill, 66 Downing, if Rosa was to go back to that key plan, is a situation where we have a very large home situated on the lot. It's a little further down, just at the bottom of the page. You can see 66. So we don't want to do that. We didn't want to add this to the house, rotate the garage, where then it could abide by the height of the house requirements at 10 meters. We've maintained increased setbacks as necessary. We're providing additional landscape screening on all sides. And we have no overlooking windows as mentioned. So it is our opinion that in keeping with the government legislation, you know, for Greenbelt and intensifying our cities, increasing the density is important, and it's inevitable. It's already happening elsewhere in the Glenridge neighborhood. And we feel that the Claire and Anthony should not be penalized just because they have a small house, when all the other requirements for landscaping and so forth, they are all met on the site. And that's pretty much all I have at this point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just going to share my understanding of how the city has defined subordinate with respect to this comparison of the buildings, in that an R zone, any of the R zone in St. Catharines are intended to support dwelling units. And the intent and purpose of the official plan zoning bylaw is to increase the density of dwelling units, not the density of structures on a property. So when I read the application and staff reports, my understanding is that by allowing a disproportionately sized accessory dwelling unit, which does not support a dwelling unit, it's an accessory dwelling unit, it would impede the future development of the dwelling unit because the dwelling unit would now, due to the variances to support the accessory dwelling unit, could not be expanded to actually provide more dwelling units, which is what the intent of an R zone is for human habitation, not storage. So that in that case, I can define subordinate as opposed to numbers of floor area versus the intent of the zoning bylaw to provide a more dominant dwelling unit and a subordinate accessory dwelling unit in terms of its maximum and best use for the number of dwelling units, because we can now have, 2 interior accessory dwelling units in a primary dwelling unit. And by reducing the coverage with the accessory dwelling unit, you hinder the development of the current dwelling unit to have more opportunities for parking and numbers of dwelling units. So that's my understanding of subordinate, and I wrote it down as opposed to interrupting you, so I just thought I'd try and interrupt you, but that was what I wrote down.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
In all due respect, the Greenbelt legislation puts a no development ring around St. Catharines and says you can't go and develop out there. That applies to all types of buildings, not just dwelling units.
Yes, but in our
That's
zone,
office
the idea
building,
is...
that's commercial retail, that's
Yep.
residential and so forth. And so, anyhow, I don't want to dwell on that, but we are definitely subordinate in height and in area to the existing house, which is modern in nature, and what is proposed is in keeping with the character and the architectural features of the Glen Ridge area, which, by the way, there are no architectural guideline standards for this area. Thank you.
Any questions of the committee to the applicant? Anybody in the gallery wish to speak to this application? We can't all come down at once, so choose who comes down first and take a seat. And ideally, if you know that you're going to have the same comments, if one person can speak the same comments on all three, great. If after one person speaks and the points are made, we would expect that any further speakers would add to those points, not necessarily reiterate them, because we would already know what the points are. Name and address and your comments, please.
Hey, this is John Fetchin. I live at 37 Glenridge. I'm here with my fiance, who also lives there. We just moved into the house a couple months ago, and we were really grateful for Anthony and Claire offering us the time to sort of voice our concerns. I guess, the area of it, first I just want to reiterate that I would love you guys to upgrade your garage. I think it's a great idea. I did submit a letter of concern. I think the real genesis of my concern is that it's just our house is so close to the property line there. Our backyard is quite small. I think our concern really is just that the height of 2 meters above what a bylaw stipulates is just, it's just kind of overwhelming for us, like when we moved in. And I think just another consideration for us was that while it would, increase the property value for Claire and Anthony, I think it would come at the cost of lessening the character of our backyard. Again, in our conversations, you seemed really accommodating to concerns, so I hope you guys take that into consideration when you do eventually sort of come up with a finalized project plan, because I do want you guys to be content with your project. It just seems like the 2 meters above the bylaw. You know, bylaws are there to sort of, like, I'm sure they're well thought out, and it just seems like it would be a really, really tall structure, really, really close to our property, and would really alter the character and feel of our backyard. So,
Excellent.
thanks for the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anybody else wish to contribute to the conversation? Please come on down.
Hi, Cassandra Katina. I live at 35 Glenridge. So while the proposed structure is not right on our property line, I think the big concern for myself, my mother who also lives at that home, is the fact that the houses in Glenridge are, 100 years old. Ours is 99. We have cracks in our basement from something as simple as, transport trucks going down Glenridge Avenue, even though they're not supposed to. From the Burgoyne Bridge going up, from the construction recently done on Downing Street. So our concern is that while we don't share a property line with it, it's still within a very close range of our home. And the homes are so old, and our issue is what happens if there is structural damage to our foundation and our home based on the construction happening, essentially the lot, I guess for lack of a better term, kitty corner to ours.
So there's no answer to that question. The concern you raise is not uncommon. What damage does an earthquake do to a property versus a human activity versus age and degradation of materials? I guess at this point we can say we have heard your concern, but my expectation is that the hindrance of a private homeowner to improve their property within the zoning bylaw or with a minor variance is probably not going to be, consideration for a property across the street and damage for a relatively minor, construction activity. One would not expect that that would transfer through the land to a house that far away. But either way, it's every private property owner's right to improve their property and add things within the zoning bylaw that enhances their life and meets their requirements. And that's a difficult one to contemplate, is damage for adjacent properties. But one can imagine this is relatively as minor a construction project as one would expect, as opposed to road construction or natural causes. But thank you for your comments. They will be considered. Oh, I can tell you didn't like my response, but I'm trying to be fair. Anybody else in the gallery wish to add to the conversation? So similar, if you could turn your microphone on, state your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Sherry Katina, and I live at 35 Glenridge Avenue. And I don't have an issue with somebody building on their property to have a more valuable property. I don't have a problem with that at all. I do feel that I think the height of this garage is 2 feet over what the bylaw says. It's going to be quite large. I mean, it's 1.5 stories. It is, as my daughter said, we live beside John and Jessica, and it'll be right there because all the trees were taken down last year, I believe, along the back because you came to our door. Somebody came to our door to ask if the neighbor was home. So that to me will be a blockage of sunlight. It'll be a blockage of view. It will, it's not going to enhance us at all. But I did want to ask you, is there going to be plumbing in it?
So technically, you're speaking to me, through me.
Sorry.
So this way there's not a direct kind of
So
conflict.
I would like to know if there's going to be plumbing in it because I did look at the plans and it is a loft. It's got a stairway up. So to me, and they've got windows in the front and dormers and whatever, and it's all nice to say that, well, it belongs in the neighborhood with the visual and whatever. If it's at the back of the house, nobody's going to see it anyway. The thing is that it seems to me that perhaps it might not be storage there. It might be someone living there, and we don't know that because we've already don't know if there's going to be plumbing in it or not.
Well, let's get an answer for that right now, but we'll also get planning staff to comment on if a person was trying to apply for a project that met the requirements of a detached accessory dwelling unit, which this project has no indication that it is, it would be a very different planning review. Is that correct?
Through the chair, it would be, so an accessory structure is assessed in the same way as an accessory structure would be if it was a garage. But there will be additional requirements if it were to be a habitable space.
A dwelling unit.
Correct.
Okay. And to the applicant, could you please comment on the current plans and whether or not plumbing is anticipated? Or
So in regards to the loft, the maximum height in the center of the loft is 6 feet, which means in work boots, I'm walking with my back bent up there. It's not habitable. There's absolutely no plans for any plumbing at all for there. Possibly a sink basin to wash my hands, but nothing of that nature.
yes, there was a drawing included which did show the floor to ceiling height in the loft, and it is less than what the Ontario Building Code would consider a habitable space
There it is.
at 6'2". I think 6'8" is the minimum you can have to be considered a livable space. Is there any further comments?
You might not be aware the section is that's proposed is up behind you right now. Oh, you can see it, sorry. Yeah, it's 6'2". It's just a storage loft.
Well.
It's certainly not meant as a.
So to the speaker's comments, we are here to talk about the two minor variances. One of them is height. You addressed your concern about height, and so your point has been made and heard and is relevant to.
Yeah. And the only other thing I think I would say is that I know people, they upgrade their properties and whatever, but I do think that they have to have consideration of the ages of the homes in Glenridge, whether it's a bridge going up or somebody doing something on Downing Street when you had all that construction on Downing Street and the pounding. You still have to put your pylons in or whatever the heck they're called, footings, whatever. I'm not a construction worker. But there is going to be, I would assume, some pounding whatever in my house shakes. And I do have cracks now in my basement because we didn't get pictures before. Nothing could be done about it. So I am a little concerned on that because Glenridge is built on clay. So everybody knows that this stuff happens.
Well, again, if a house burns down and is rebuilt, I mean, there's a number of factors which would require a property to have invasive construction activity at any given time in the history of its existence. And in this case, we're talking about it with the perspective of zoning bylaw compliance. So that's beyond our purview anyhow. So right now, you focused on the height, which is exactly on the mark with what we're looking at. And the other thing is the lot coverage from 10% to 16.25. So that's how much roof area, impervious roof area is on the site, and that's one of the other minor variances, which could be interpreted as speaking about subordinate or overdevelopment or whatever. But those are the two issues. You've addressed your concerns about one, and that helps us with our conversation.
Great.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Oh,
just
sorry.
a comment to the various people that have spoken, just a chance to rebut. At 1.2 meter setback, that's what's required for a house. And the house could be 10 meters tall with a basement. Just to let you know, this would have a 4-foot deep foundation as shown in the cross-section only, where had this been an addition to the house, it would be going down approximately 8 feet. So it's minimized as much as possible to just the frost protection foundation depth only. With respect to the proximity issue that the previous woman, I forgot your name, I apologize. Again, it's 1.2 meters, not the accessory 2 feet away. And as Mr. Fletcham, I caught his name quickly, so, John had mentioned, we looked at different roof configurations and came up with the gambrel to soften that impact so that it wouldn't have a 1.5 story of vertical wall and then a roof structure, and would sort of cant away gently to try to break down that mass. Thank you.
Looking at the section, however, is there a need, is there an intended use that requires a 10-foot clear floor-to-ceiling height for the garage that is, one could say is contributing, is a little more excessive than what you see for storage for a car, and is contributing to this height problem?
Do you want to speak to that?
Sure. So I have, through the chair, I have a lift that I use. I have a vintage car I'm working on, which is currently in storage and all its parts because I have nowhere to put it right now. The height was there to allow a lift so I could get under the car to work. I could do 9 feet. I could drop it 1/2 foot, but I mean, it's 10 feet is typically the height of the posts. They need approximately 10 feet. So that's the impetus for the
Yeah,
height.
it just seemed like there was a specific use that this was going to provide, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we in some way make that proposition now, Mr. Chair?
Well,
to-
we'll talk
Or word the motion that way?
We'll talk about it. I'm just going to ask the committee members if they have any further questions or clarifications from the applicant.
Through you, Chair, I have 2 questions. The first one, the garage that's being demolished to make way for this project, with regards to the lot coverage, do you know what the existing coverage is with the structure? And second question is, given the comments in against the application, mostly pertaining to height, and no comments in support, can we split this up and deal with the variances separately? I feel like there's going to be more contentious.
Yes, I suppose we could, because the applicant could still get the floor area that they want out of a shorter building. So, yes, there's no harm. So we'll consider that when the person reads in when whoever reads in the motion. Any other questions from committee members?
I think staff was ready to answer that question about the
sorry.
lot coverage.
Yeah, through the chair, according to the site plan, I believe the existing garage is 5.6% of the total lot area, or 24.8 square meters.
So does the applicant have any final comments? Nope. Okay.
We're just open to dealing with the issues separately,
Yeah.
if they want to.
Oh, we're not asking you what the
Oh,
separate issues
okay,
are.
sorry.
Turn your mic
Well,
off.
it's the application.
So,
Ouch.
would anybody like to read in the motions independently for, there's no impact other than if one of the two is the cause of the fail, then we'll never know. But if we read them both independently, then each can stand on their own. And it still gives the applicant an opportunity to comply with the one that is denied if the one is denied. So whoever was reading the motion, they're welcome to do that. And if they don't want to, we'll accept it as it is. But we need a volunteer to make the motion. How about the guy who suggested we break it in half, make the motion?
I have if I could add one more thing, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Oh, come on, I'm trying to run an orderly meeting here. Yes.
Based on my neighbor's concerns for height, I'd be willing to concede to a single-story structure. I'd ask that I get an extra meter for roof pitch so that it matches the roof pitch. Can I do that here, or is that something that's be done separately? Or
I believe an accessory building, the height is measured to the ridge, unlike a dwelling unit where it's measured to half the roof height.
That's correct. So
Right now, you're asking for an overall height increase, regardless of the roof configuration, from 4.5 to 6.53.
Right, and I'm saying that I would reduce that to 5.5 and keep it as a single-story garage, if it, in order to be a good neighbor. I don't want to upset
But now we have to sort of like poll all the people this was distributed to.
Oh, okay.
We don't have to poll, but we have to consider the fact that, okay, all right, thank you. You're willing to consider, if so be deemed by the committee here, that you would accept a 5.5 meter height to the ridge for a one-story building, as in there's no stairs in this design. Thank you. So we're now in a discussion period with just the committee members. We're not going back to invite anybody else to speak. So there is, so we don't know, there's still a minor variance in height. It's now to a lesser, it could be proposed to be at a lesser degree. And with respect to any comments we may have heard with respect to privacy and overlook, that would be minimized with respect to not having a floor to stand on to look out a dormer window. So we're going to have to decide whether or not that's the kind of thing that might, well, the comments we've received are for our consideration anyway, but there is a reduction in overlook and privacy issues with the proposed change if we grant it, and still a height increase, but not by as much. So, do we want to consider the design alternative at all? Discussion. Consider the proposed design alternative. Okay, well, is somebody going to read a motion in? So, if that motion is read in, we're still deciding on, this will be the same lot coverage increase. We're just talking about a height reduction, and within that height reduction, it would be impossible to build a second floor anyway, but we might have to add that, that no second floor is included in any design or loft or whatever. Is there any comments on that?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Please, make a motion.
And I'm making it on the basis of landscape coverage being above the requirement and the overall coverage being below the requirement. Following consideration of all written and oral presentation, I move that variance application A2324 as presented in the notice of hearing be approved subject to a reduction in height from 6.53 meters to 5.5 meters. As the variances are minor in nature, appropriate, desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
What I heard was one motion addressing both minor variances for approval with the proposed reduction of the ridge height of the building to 5.5 meters. So, any discussion before we call a vote?
Do we need to add the clarifier that that's a single story as well? Like you can't make.
I mean, you can't.
Does that matter?
Yeah. I mean,
I'd be happy to add that
please.
If it matters.
Friendly amendment from Tom to add the qualifier that there's not a second floor or loft. All those in favor of the motion as read in? All those opposed? So your application has been approved, 4 in favor, 1 against, for the reduced ridge height and no second floor. I don't know if it's a win or not, but okay, thank you.
Thank you to everybody. I appreciate it.
I thought we were splitting the vote. I'm okay.
No, that was. Thank you. 14 Cole Farm Boulevard, minor variance application for a proposed addition to an attached garage of a detached dwelling The minor variance being requested is for a minimum rear yard setback, which is required to be 7.5 meters, reduced to 5.65 meters. And it's possible that we have David at the table. Turn that red light on, and I guess we already know who you are and where you live, so we'll skip past that. The little person, come on, the little guy talking icon, that's the one.
Ah, okay.
Is there anything you want to add to the conversation about your application? You don't have to.
No, I just wondered if there was any concerns.
Are there any concerns from the committee regarding this application, the clarification on it? Jamal?
I'd just like to make a motion.
Oh, just slow down. Anybody in the gallery who wishes to speak this application? You, sir, do you wish to speak this application? Okay, your turn's next. Yes, please put a motion on the table.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance application A-25/24 as presented in the notice of hearing be approved, as the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw.
Thank you. All those in favor? Congratulations. Your application's been approved unanimously, right?
Thank you.
Now, we are waiting for someone who's caught in traffic. There are 2 applications left, but 1 human being sits back there.
He made it. 126 Lake.
But what happened to 9? All right, okay, right. Good, thank you. 126 Lake Street, will the applicant please come down? This is a minor variance for a rear building addition, reduction in the minimum interior side yard setback for a non-residential building from, to 0.28 meters where 1.2 is required. Okay, you are the owner, agent?
No, I'm actually the brother of Ryan Pasha.
Please state your name and address. We have you down as the agent. Congratulations, you had a promotion. You're not just a brother, you're the agent. Okay, Mohammed, please, is there anything you wish to add? As you heard others before you, they kind of explain the situation if it needs to be explained. So if you want to explain it, hit the button for the red light to come on your microphone. Down, lower, 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 toward the bottom. Watch this, the magic hand's gonna come along.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm here for the first time, so I don't know the exercise.
Is there anything you wish to explain about the application?
Okay, so that is application for a single minor variance. And as you can see, there is a small space for like a patio that was already there. This setback that we are requesting for is actually already, the building is with those setbacks. So what we are trying to do is to convert that patio area to include it into the building. So it's like a corner at the back, and it is adjacent to the parking lot, which is right next to it. So to my understanding, I mean, basically, there was one concern that was raised regarding the eaves troughs should be within the limit. And my brother had answered that yes, we will be compliant with that. Other than that, I mean, I think it's just that we are just trying to stick to the existing variance, but still it requires a minor variance application to be put forward, because I think it's because of the bylaws for the new additions. Yeah.
So even if the existing building is not in compliance with today's zoning bylaw requirements, anything you add on to the existing building, this new construction,
Has
is
to be.
expected to be.
Yes.
And in this case, you want to sort of extend the lines of the existing non-conforming building, hence the minor variance for the interior side yard setback. That is understood. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Anybody in the gallery wish to speak this application? No? Anyone, is there a motion to be put on the table?
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance application A2724, as presented in the notice of hearing, be approved as the one variance is minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and is in keeping with the official plan, the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, along with the purpose.
All those in favor of the motion? Your application's been approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks for waiting.
First appearance and
You knocked it out of the park.
You're 1 for 1.
highly appreciate you guys, staying so late to hear all this, so thank you.
Happy to do it. See you.
Is there any new business?
The only new business I wanted to add, and the new housekeeping bylaw has been passed, and there's no appeals. We'll send you a copy for your reference. There's some number of changes. And anyway, that's all I wanted to let you know, that you're getting a new zoning bylaw.
The next meeting is on.
The next meeting, that next meeting's on Thursday. That's correct.
The 9th item on the list is the date of the next hearing is June 20th, which is is a Thursday, apparently. This meeting is hereby adjourned. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, great, thanks, bye.